Excuse my mess. My hair, I mean, is it's like, right now it's like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. And right now I just want to show you guys, it says, this is, the training that I'm taking. Este es el training que estoy tomando it's the Act 126 Part 3 training. It's a whole process. It should be like 3 hours. So I'm just doing it now. I'm trying to record for you guys to see that what I'm doing and the training I'm going to be taking. And you can see, like, I'm going to show you. 1 second. You can see my name on the top. And this is one of the course. Overview of the educator discipline system. And I'm just going to put play for you guys to hear.
Welcome. Message from the Professional Standards and Practices Commission. On behalf of the Professional Standards and Practices Commission, welcome to the Professional Ethics and the Educator Discipline Act e-learning course. Ensuring the safety of students who are entrusted to the care of the schools across this Commonwealth is the foremost responsibility of all members of the educational community. The first step in achieving this goal is to have all employees within a school system understand their fiduciary duty to students, accept their duty to serve as role models, recognize and maintain appropriate boundaries with students, appreciate the consequences of engaging in misconduct, and respect their duty to report misconduct. All too often we assume that the adults within a school system understand these responsibilities. This course was designed not only to partially satisfy the mandated training requirements of Act 126, but also to take a proactive approach to make sure that school safety does not rest on assumptions, but on thoughtful and purposeful training. Most of the individuals who work in our schools are ethical, caring, and responsible adults. But we cannot close our eyes to the few who fail to uphold the high standards we expect of our school employees and who breach the public's trust in our education system. Educator misconduct occurs in various forms and ranges in severity. You should be aware, however, that this course will focus in large part on sexual misconduct, the most egregious breach of trust imaginable. Please understand that some of this course content may be troubling and difficult to hear, but it is only through knowledge that we can be empowered to realize our goal of keeping students safe. We ask that you approach this course with an open mind. Many of you may feel that you don't need this course, that it doesn't apply to you. However, misconduct can occur in any school and is often perpetrated by employees who are seemingly above reproach. The responsibility to instill zero tolerance for misconduct of any kind in our schools is shared with every employee, every teacher, every administrator, every paraprofessional, every crossing guard, every cafeteria worker, every custodian, and so on. If we all share the same understanding about recognizing, reporting, and preventing misconduct in our schools, particularly sexual misconduct, we can together provide a safe environment for our students. Module 1. Overview of the Educator Discipline System. Objectives. Like all professions, the education profession is subject to laws and regulations designed to set and maintain standards of competency, professional ethics, and conduct. These standards are enforced by disciplining members who fail to adhere to them. At the end of this module, you will recognize the sequence of events in the educator discipline system in Pennsylvania, the types of conduct that can trigger discipline, and the consequences of engaging in misconduct. While our focus in this module is on educators, even if you are not an educator, it is important that you be familiar with the expectations that the education profession has for its members. As an integral part of the school community, you have an opportunity and the responsibility to help prevent misconduct and to create a safe environment for students. In order to do so, you will need to become acquainted with the educator discipline system and the types of misconduct that may lead to employment or professional sanctions. Professional standards. The standards of professional knowledge, skill, competence, and conduct that govern the educators in Pennsylvania are set forth in the Code of Professional Practice and Conduct for Educators and the Educator Discipline Act. The Educator Discipline Act and the Code serve as a guide for the professional and personal behavior of educators in the Commonwealth. The Code of Professional Practice and Conduct. Pennsylvania's Code of Professional Practice and Conduct for Educators, created by the Professional Standards and Practices Commission and its stakeholders, expresses the shared beliefs of the teaching profession that every educator in the Commonwealth is expected to adopt in practice. The Code is designed to identify the ethical responsibilities of educators and the standards of behavior that should guide their interactions with students, colleagues, and the community. Intrinsic to the ethical standards set forth in the Code are the values of trust and fair-mindedness, honoring human dignity, emotional well-being, and cognitive development, respect for spiritual and cultural values, and integrity in professional commitments and responsibilities. In addition, educators are expected to protect students from conditions that interfere with learning or that are harmful to the student's health and safety. When individuals become educators in this Commonwealth, they make an ethical commitment to uphold these values. Educator Discipline Act. Now we'll examine the Educator Discipline Act, which sets forth the types of conduct that can trigger professional discipline, the types of professional discipline that can be imposed, and the procedures that are followed when an educator is accused of misconduct. Professional Standards and Practices Commission. The Educator Discipline Act gives the Professional Standards and Practices Commission the responsibility for overseeing the educator discipline system and administering discipline. The Commission is an independent body made up of 13 members who include teachers, administrators, educational specialists, and members of the general public. While the Commission has many roles, its most important role is as the adjudicator in educator discipline cases. As the adjudicator, the Commission is like a panel of judges responsible for considering disciplinary charges filed by the Department of Education and imposing discipline against educators who it finds are guilty of misconduct. The Commission is also responsible for ensuring that the established rules and procedures are followed in order to provide a fair process to all participants. It may help you to think of the Commission as the court in the educator discipline system. The Commission has authority over everyone who holds a public or private academic school certificate, including classroom teachers, administrators, school counselors, school nurses, and librarians. The Commission also has authority over non-certified charter or cyber charter school staff members and contracted educational provider staff members, because these individuals work in positions that require certification in a traditional public school. The Commission has no authority over non-educators, such as bus drivers, paraprofessionals, custodians, support staff, and volunteers. Case Study: School Computer Misuse. Next, we'll take a look at the disciplinary procedures set forth in the Educator Discipline Act. But first, take a few minutes to watch the following video created by the Nebraska Professional Practices Commission and used by permission. In the video, teacher Alan Hill is disciplined for his internet use while at school. While Mr. Hill's case is fictional, it is similar to actual commission cases. Consider the impact of Mr. Hill's conduct on his personal and professional life. Ask yourself whether Mr. Hill's conduct warrants discipline and whether the punishment fits the crime. Finally, consider why it is so important for educators to maintain personal lives that are consistent with the Code of Professional Practice and Conduct.
I'll just make a brief opening statement. The Commission members have evidence before you that shows that Alan Hill was employed by Bison Public Schools until it was discovered that Mr. Hill was using school district computers to access sexually explicit material. And as you'll see, the evidence shows that Mr. Hill did this on more than one occasion and visited more than one site over a 3-month period in March, April.
I see Melanie didn't make it. No surprise there. Probably meeting with a divorce lawyer right now. Jack was so sure this was going to blow over. Said it's not against the law. Said I didn't do anything wrong. I hope he's right. I didn't think I was hurting anybody. I thought I was protecting my family. Who am I kidding? I wasn't thinking. I was there alone at school, no kids around. I knew better. But I told myself there'd be no harm in taking a look. Just once. Melanie would never allow it at home. Not in this house. Well, who could blame her? Josh is 3. He could have walked in. But at school, at night, alone, what was the harm? Just once. But it wasn't just once. What possessed me to think I wouldn't get caught?
After I saw what was on his screen, I waited until he left the room and checked back to see what he'd been viewing. When we confronted him about it, he claimed he had just looked at something a friend had recommended and hadn't known what it was. He said it was the first time he had done that and promised never to do it again. But when we started investigating, it became apparent that he had been looking at explicit material, pornographic websites and that sort of thing, for quite some time. Clearly it wasn't one site or one time. We found page after page he had visited.
After you discovered Mr. Hill's activities on the computer, did you find any evidence that students were ever present when he was visiting these sites?
Well, as I understand it, there are codes so you can figure out that sort of thing. You can see which computer someone used and when someone's been to a particular site. I'm not an expert. In our investigation, we didn't get that technical. But there was the potential for a student to enter any room where he was accessing this material. The evidence we did gather definitely showed he was doing this on computers belonging to the school district. That was a policy violation in itself.
Was Mr. Hill terminated?
He chose to resign, and his resignation was accepted.
You've seen the evidence before the commission. Collected.
Thank God I didn't listen to Jack and drag this thing out. He kept telling me it's not against the law to look at porn. He didn't understand. It wasn't just a legal thing or even a policy thing. It was just wrong.
Mr. Hill was using the school district's computers to access websites that, in our opinion, are pornographic websites. That's not what the taxpayers intended when they bought the school district those computers. Our position is that using the school district's computers to access pornographic websites on the internet is immoral conduct. It wasn't just a one-time mistake, or a brief lapse in judgment, or an ignorant error. We need to send a clear message to Mr. Hill and to all members of the profession that this is wrong, and to send a clear message to the public that we want to protect students and ensure that this very valuable technology is used appropriately, always.
Jack, yeah, you wanted me to call when it was over. Well, it's definitely over. My certificate revoked for 2 years. No, it wasn't. I'll explain it to you later. They weren't out of line. Well, supposed to get counseling. No, I'm not gonna call her. She wouldn't answer anyway. I'm just gonna, I don't know, at some point go back for the rest of my stuff. Stay at the hotel a couple more nights so I figure out where I'm gonna live. I have no idea. Where do you suggest I look for a job? I mean, seriously, who's gonna hire me? No, this is not something I can lie about or hide. They'll do an internet search on me and whomp, there it is. How's that for ironic? Sorry, it's just everything. You know what's also ironic? I could visit all the sites I want to now. And that's pretty much the last thing I want to do.
This is a state office building where the Professional Practices Commission has just voted to recommend the permanent revocation of the certificate of ex-teacher Robert Eakins. I'm Chris Hanover. As you know, Eakins was terminated from Riverview High School after it was learned he was stalking an 18-year-old student. We spoke with that former student earlier today. Kim, can you tell us what was going on with you and Robert Eakins?
I had Mr. Eakins for drama. That's it. He was just one of my teachers. I don't know how all this got started. I don't know what was going through his head. Honestly, I can't even imagine what he was thinking. I guess maybe it started when he cast me in Guys and Dolls.
You ready to work on that dialect?
Sure am. I'd never played a lead before, and Mr. Eakins had me start coming in to rehearse extra with him after school. He didn't have any of the other leads come in like that, but I was okay with it. I mean, I liked Mr. Eakins, and I wanted to do the best I could in the show. Together as a husband and wife. Achoo!
Gesundheit. Hey, that's really getting better.
He was always giving me all this praise, telling me I was so talented. Sometimes it was a little much. But I was in his class and I wanted a good grade, so I wasn't going to say anything about it. Conditions. Happy anniversary.
When did you know he was interested in you as more than a student?
I guess it was after dress rehearsal. I got out to my car and there was this flower on the windshield. No card. My friends gave me a hard time and said it was probably from Mr. Eakins. I didn't believe them. Then it happened each night of the show.
Did he ever say he was the one leaving the flowers?
No.
But that wasn't the only thing that he did.
No. After the show was over, he started putting notes in my locker.
What kind of notes?
It was, I don't know. He'd put in Shakespeare quotes. Like stuff Romeo says to Juliet about her beauty, about kissing. And he'd sign them Robert.
You were sure they were from Eakins?
I don't know anybody else who quotes Shakespeare. And I knew it was his handwriting. He just kept getting more obvious. He started calling me at my job and asking how I was doing, say something about what I wore that day. Then there were emails, more and more personal, all signed Robert. Then he started calling me on my cell. If I didn't answer, he'd leave a voicemail.
How did you feel about all that?
Really creeped out. Then one time, he asked me to meet him at the park. That made me really, really uncomfortable.
That's when we got the order.
Say again?
Kim told us what was going on. We contacted the school administration and also got a protection order.
That's pretty serious. Were you scared?
Kim said she wasn't scared, but that wasn't the point. We were. I mean, Kim's a sweet kid. He was taking advantage, playing out some kind of fantasy in his head. Made us furious. This guy is an adult, a teacher. We couldn't believe he was acting like that. Kim's boyfriends are more mature than that.
Do you think that Kim did anything to accidentally encourage him?
Absolutely not. Suppose she did have some kind of schoolgirl crush. So what? He's the teacher. He has a responsibility to his students. They put their trust in him, and he has no right to betray that, no matter what kind of signal he thinks he's getting from her. If he thought she was making some kind of play for him, his job is to ignore it, or go to the counselor to do something besides try to make a date with her in the park. He's the adult. He should have acted like it. To me, Robert Eakins betrayed the trust of my daughter. He betrayed the trust of all his students. He betrayed the trust of all his parents. I hope he never teaches again. You talk to any of the parents, they'll tell you the exact same thing. Nobody ever wants to see this guy back in front of a classroom.
Mr. Eakins, Robert Eakins, any regrets? Are you sorry for what you did? Are you sorry?
These women love the sense in this.
Hey, Don.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, you got a minute?
For a fellow principal, always. Have a seat.
It's about one of my teachers.
Okay.
Teaches third grade. Great with the kids. Good performance reviews, but a few times lately I've seen him with a student on his lap.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And I gave him a warning the first time, but it happened again yesterday.
Well, so what'd you do?
Well, see, now that's the thing. I know the next step is to report his behavior to the superintendent, but I feel really uncomfortable doing it. I mean, like I said, he has a great record. He's an active member at my church.
All right, let me resolve your moral quandary right here. Nobody but Santa Claus can have a kid on his lap. Ever. Now, you gave him a warning, so now you have a legal obligation to report the second incident.
Yeah, but it doesn't make it any easier.
Well, look at it this way. Guy could be Mr. Creepy.
Mr. Creepy?
Yeah, you know, one of those guys doesn't do anything overtly sexual with the children, at least not while anyone's looking. And one day you've got an angry parent in your office because little Johnny says teacher touched his private parts. It happened. First school I ever taught at. Teacher saw a colleague touching children. Didn't say anything about it. Oh, she was devastated when he actually abused a child.
Okay, I'll do it. Awkward, but I'll do it.
Well, better safe than sorry, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know how it turns out.
All right.
And thanks.
Anytime. Mercy. Mr. Creepy gives me the creeps. You know what else gives me the creeps? High school teachers who date students. I mean, some teachers think that just because a student's 18, he or she is fair game. Can you believe it? This just in, no! You can date students when pigs fly. It's taboo, verboten, hands off.
Are you seriously?
Weird.
Oh my god. Oh look. There goes Lila and Mr. Ridgemont. They're practically a couple. What do you mean? Haven't you noticed? They're together every chance they get.
I never thought about it before, but after Jenna pointed it out, it's so obvious that Mr. Ridgemont and Lila are involved. I asked my mom if I should tell anyone.
Lila's mother and I have been friends for years. Well, not friends really, but I've seen her at charity events. I felt it was my responsibility to tell her. I mean, if it were my daughter, I would hope that someone would tell me.
You text more than any person I know over the age of 13.
Well, maybe that's because I'm texting a 13-year-old.
What? I would never text a student.
That's because you don't know how.
Every time you text a student, it's like a bullet that can come back and maim you. You need a firewall between you and those little ferrets. Trust me.
I don't know. You can learn a lot by texting students. For instance, hey, Ridgemont. What's up with you and Lila?
Wait, what?
Texts are flying about you and your favorite little flute player. Seems like you two have your own little private duet going.
Wait, you can't be serious.
Oh, yeah, I'm serious.
See that?
No,
See that?
no, just look. No, you can't touch it. Just look. Ha!
Mr. Richmond has been hitting on my daughter.
Is that what she told you?
No, but I found this. It was a gift.
I'm sorry. Lila, it's a pleasure to have a student of your talent in the band. You always brighten my day. Keep up the good work, Mr. Richmond. Well, he did cross a line here. We don't condone giving students gifts, but still, I don't see where there's a...
Oh, please! He's been putting the moves on her and everyone in town knows about it except you.
Well, let's get to the bottom of this then. Lila, could you come in here, please? Have a seat.
Mom? I want to ask you about... Where did you get that? I got this from your room, and I noticed your teacher is signing something.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
He gave this to you, didn't he?
It's not yours. It's mine.
So he gave it to you?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It is not normal
It does
for a
not matter.
teacher to give you a friend.
Wait, why am I going here? There's nothing wrong. What's going on with you? He gave me a gift. It doesn't matter. I'm so mad at Jenna. I can't believe this has happened. There's absolutely nothing that happened between Mr. Ridgemont and me. I feel so bad for him. No, of course not. I don't regret talking to the principal, not for a moment. Put yourself in my shoes. What would you have done? Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Of course it's embarrassing. And it's outrageous. I mean, what if my wife had gotten wind of this or something? Hey, honey, what a surprise seeing you here. At school.
Well, this has been an interesting week. As part of our ongoing refresher course on teacher ethics, we're going to review the key points of teacher-student boundaries. And to help us do that, I have an excellent film that I stumbled across in the library.
The library? You mean the museum?
The film was produced in the 1950s, but the content is still applicable to today's classroom.
Tennis on a spring day. Great exercise and a great way to think about the relationship between teacher and student. The teacher volleys information and wisdom to the student. The student volleys back questions and ultimately knowledge. But like a tennis game, the net represents a physical boundary that may not be crossed. You can be friendly with a student, but touching them is out of bounds. The net provides an emotional boundary between teacher and student as well. Watch it, mister. Tame your thoughts. Even thinking about flirting with your students is unsportsmanlike conduct. And no gift giving. Also,
like a game of tennis, all interactions with a student must be conducted in full view of spectators. And remember, you are there to listen to your students, not to confide in them. Remember, you are the adult, not your student's friend or peer. Be friendly, but professional, by maintaining the boundary between student and teacher.
Well, as you just saw, even back then, teacher-student boundaries were an issue. So, what are the takeaways? No touching students. That not only means no hugging or other affectionate contact, it also means no hitting, pushing, or grabbing in a confrontational situation. Words can be just as upsetting as inappropriate touching, so anything sexually suggestive, even flirting, is considered sexual harassment and won't be tolerated. When counseling a student, leave your door open. And if possible, include a counselor or teacher of the opposite sex. The intent is to keep you above suspicion and temptation, which is why off-campus meetings for non-school events are prohibited. In fact, if a student just needs a ride somewhere, you may only take that student off campus with parental consent. And finally, just a reminder that 18-year-old students are off limits for dating. They may be adults, but they're still students, and you can't cross that line. In summation, just hold on to that image of the net between you and your students, and you'll make the right choice in any situation when it comes to boundaries. Unless there are any questions, class dismissed.
There you go. Now you're on Facebook.
Thanks. I really appreciate your help.
Yeah, no problem. But didn't you say that you had some pictures you wanted me to upload?
Oh yeah, my cats. They're in a folder on the desktop.
Oh, okay. Cats.
Do you think I should take any